Hi, it's Destin with Studio 323, and we have another episode of Behind Closed Doors, Self-Love Unfiltered. Today we're going to be talking about the essence of a safe space. I have Amanda here with me, and she does hair and makeup for the studio. So the essence of a safe space, what is that to you?
I'm going to say, your overall experience in a whole, how you feel with your photographer, your makeup and hair artist, knowing that you're safe, your whole environment.
Right. I think it's important for them to reach out and not just message the photographer or the hair and makeup artist, but get on the phone with them and have a conversation with them.
Yes.
You want to make sure that you establish what your boundaries are so that going into the photo shoot that they are aware of maybe what some triggers could be for you,
Absolutely.
what you do and do not want to do in the shoot. I think it's important for them to not just talk to the photographer, but get to know the hair and makeup artist as well, because you're in their personal bubble, their personal space, touching their hair and their face. And for someone who has ever suffered a kind of trauma, that can be a lot to some people. I know back in my younger years, after my own personal traumas, sometimes just someone being right next to you can make you start to sweat, feel nervous, start bringing up big feelings. So it's important to make sure that you let your photographer know, the hair and makeup artist know what it is that you're nervous about, so that everyone can work around that and can make you feel comfortable coming into the door.
Absolutely. I agree, because not everyone is going to pay attention to those sort of things. Like when I'm doing makeup on a client, I might notice that she flinches when I go to touch her, and I can kind of see a resemblance and maybe trauma that I've been through, and know to maybe open a conversation about something that could be huge and healing for all of us. And that's a big thing, is we'll talk about different traumas sometimes. We are really good about gauging our different clients and kind of knowing. I think just from alone in our experience, that can help as well, kind of gauging. But we're honestly just a big group of girls embracing our own beauty and confidence and healing along the way. And so I hope that every client that comes in here knows that they are very safe. They're very comfortable. You're very good at it. I'm very good at it. Jazzy's very good at it.
I think, too, you should make sure that the photographer is never going to ask you to use props you don't want to use, do poses you don't want to use, or even wear outfits that make you feel uncomfortable. A photographer should never have you do anything that is not 100% up to your comfort level.
Absolutely. I mean, even in my own experience with you, when I got photos done, I remember you asking me to use a certain prop, and I was uncomfortable with it, and you were absolutely okay with that. And we were still able to get an amazing shot that would have been very similar if we used that prop.
Right. I think, too, knowing who you are, when I have conversations with clients, I will go and Facebook stalk them. Usually I tell the client, hey, I checked out your Facebook. You're absolutely gorgeous. But it helps me get to know what your style is, looking at the clothes you wear, your family dynamic. I kind of get to know you before you come in, besides just talking to you. So it helps me gauge maybe how spicy you're wanting to get or not get in the photos. I don't ever want someone to use props or wear things that are not them, because it's very important that we are capturing who you are in the photos. I don't want you to look at them and be like, that doesn't really look like me. And that includes hair and makeup too. We don't want to do a full face on someone who doesn't feel like themselves when they look in the mirror.
Exactly. And we're both good, I think, about gauging that. Like, you'll go look at the girls, and you might even notice that they like Star Wars or something. And you've done a couple shoots that were very fun like that and creative. And I'll ask the clients when they're sitting in my chair, what's a normal day-to-day makeup that you wear? Do you want full glam? Do you want natural glam?
I think that's super important when you're asking those questions, so that they are 100% comfortable with their look and feel like themselves. Also, too, during the makeup process, you always ask when they're done or even partially done, you're like, do you like this? Do I need to change anything? Which I think is huge. That is the moment where you speak up or forever hold your peace, because I can't change it once we've taken the pictures.
Right.
But I've never had anyone tell me like, oh, I wish I would have done this with my makeup. So,
and that's because, me or
Right.
Jazzy at the end will be, okay, is there anything you want me to add or take away? Do you want more bronzer? What do you want me to do, or do you love it all?
Yeah. So I think all of that is super important to establish those boundaries and establish a comfort level, not just before you come into the studio, but while you're here at the studio also. So I feel like all of those things are very important when you're looking at booking a shoot like this.
Right. And if you feel, and we're really good about making the clients feel safe during the whole process of glam, and then that alone lets them know they can voice anything during their session with you.
Right. I remember when I had my first boudoir shoot done back in 2017. My husband bought me one for Valentine's Day. And just a year before this, I had a surgery done on my left thigh. I have like an 8-inch scar, and it's like 2 to 3 inches wide. It's very noticeable. Like, it's huge. I was so nervous to have my pictures done and that be seen. So I told my photographer, I was like, hey, I have this big scar. I want to make sure that we're not doing poses that's going to highlight that. I would like to conceal it. I'm much more comfortable with it now than I was then. But she was very good at making sure that we did not highlight that during the photos. And I remember in my head, I was making it this like huge big deal. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be so embarrassed. And then during it, she just made me so comfortable that I completely forgot what I was nervous about. And then when I left, I was like, I did it. It felt so good.
Yes.
It felt so good. I decided to make it a career. So here we are.
Yeah, now look at you. You don't even mind that scar. You don't even think about it.
Not at all. I don't even look at the pictures. I didn't even think about that part of the nerves until we sat here and we started talking about it. And I was like, I was super nervous about that.
And that's what I love, because with boudoir photography is, I think we're so hard on ourselves, but having someone else take pictures of us in a different angle and seeing it in their eyes, it's like it helps us embrace like really how beautiful we are. And so I love that, and I love that you do that for them.
Oh, thank you. So talking about trauma, I was married once before when I was young. I was 23. There were a bunch of red flags that me as a 23-year-old girl was like, oh, I'm just going to ignore them, or, oh, I can fix him. Like the things we tell ourselves sometimes. Yeah. Well, with this marriage, we were only married for 2 years, but towards the end of that 2 years, there was a night at home. He was an alcoholic. There was one night where I'm not even sure how it started, but we got into an argument and I wanted to leave the house and he would not let me. So he barricaded the bedroom door. We were in our bedroom and I was like, well, I'm going to pick up the phone and call someone to come get me. So he took my phone, he threw it against the wall. It shattered into a bunch of like little pieces. This is back when we had like little Nokia phones. I didn't even have an iPhone. But I remember grabbing that and then kept trying to get out. Finally, I was able to escape the bedroom with my broken phone, and I had locked myself inside of the car. He had keys. I didn't. I couldn't go anywhere. But I kept hitting the lock button so that he couldn't open the car while piecing my phone together. And he's yelling at me saying he was going to slice the tires so I can't go anywhere. I remember just being terrified, especially growing up and seeing my dad abuse my mom. Big feelings. But I was trying to piece like all these little pieces together on the phone and trying to call 911. I ended up somehow calling different people in my phone book, and they got voicemails from me saying help over and over again. I need help. And I'd say my address. I'm like, I need help. This is my address. Derek, my husband's actually one of them that I was trying to call, and this is like at midnight. And finally I got through to 911. Police officers showed up at the house. I was like, I just want to grab my things and leave. They helped me call my mom and my sister. My sister's the one who ended up coming to get me because she lived closer and drove me back into Tulsa. He had called his mom and sisters. They were on their way because he's like, I'm going to jail. I need help. And I remember them trying to call me and get a hold of me and ask me, like, don't press charges on him, which I did not do. I should have, so that all of that was recorded, but I did not do that. My sister came and picked me up, and then I remember going to work the next day, and I didn't even know who I had called because all of it was a blur. But some of the people that I worked with, some of the bartenders were like, oh my gosh, I've been trying to reach you. Are you okay? What happened? And I had to explain everything to them. I didn't have a phone because it was broken. I had to go get another one. But I remember being embarrassed about all of it. Now that I've grown, I'm like, why am I embarrassed about something that was not my fault? You cannot control the actions of others. But I remember after that, just having people in my close space or my area and working in a bar, just random strangers being close next to me. I remember being flinchy, like you were talking about in the chair. I remember like head on a swivel, like making sure like someone wasn't going to grab me. He had grabbed my arm so hard that you could tell there was like a handprint around me. He had taken and grabbed me by the throat and had me against the wall. All of that was very hard to like get over. I remember when I first started dating my husband, I still had a lot of uncomfort when it came to things like being in the bedroom and stuff. I knew that he was not that person, that he would never do those things. But growing up, seeing it from my dad and my mom, and then experiencing it more than once with more than one partner, it's just very hard to retrain your brain to know this is a safe space. This is a safe space. And my husband's very good at like reminding me this is a safe space. And I feel like that's something that you and I and Jazzy do. We are reminding you from start to finish that this is a safe space and everything's going to be okay.
No matter what you've been through, you can talk about it, you can keep it within, we can work through it, we can make you know that you're not alone. Maybe we can relate in some way. I'm so sorry that you've been through that. Do you not just want to hug you?
Oh, well, we can hug. Love you, friend.
It's like PTSD, so it's like I get it. Like I haven't been through the same exact things, but like the abuse that I experienced from both of my parents, like I can gauge it from, now I'm gonna cry, seeing you cry and then talking about this. But that's the beauty and stuff like this is you're not alone, and it makes you that much more stronger. And that's it alone is a beautiful thing. But some of the abuse that I've been through, it kind of helps me gauge, from clients, maybe if they flinch like that, and I'm like, baby, you're safe. In this chair, you're safe. In this studio, you're safe.
Right.
There's no reason to be scared, but we can totally understand, maybe the things that you've been through, why you might be. But
I feel like a lot of people have a lot of childhood trauma too that they carry with them that you just learn to slowly unpack. I think that's one of the things that in adulthood I was constantly thinking I had to unpack everything at once, and I needed to. This is something I learned in therapy. I always felt like that. Oh, I need to forgive them. I need to forgive them. Because that's something that I was taught growing up by my grandparents. I lived with them for a while. And they were very Christian. They were Pentecostal. I grew up Pentecostal for a little bit. And my grandmother would always talk about forgive and forget. And eventually my dad instilled the same thing. Forgive and forget. And in therapy, I learned you don't always have to forgive someone. You cannot hold on to those feelings and move past them. But if you don't want to forgive someone, you don't have to. You don't have to. And that's the first time I had ever been told that.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell myself that from time to time. I'm like, you know what? I don't have to forgive that person.
Mm-hmm.
I can recognize the feeling and then let it go and move on to a new feeling.
Mm-hmm. Well, and especially being like going through it your whole childhood and, going through things like that. At the end of the day, they're your parents. And so you want to forgive them. And then you almost form this trauma bond. And like, there's things that still now, as a 29-year-old adult with a working brain, I know that's not right. And I should not have to go through the things I've went through or even things they might do now. But it's still hard to understand because you have like that trauma bond. But
yeah, my dad passed away in 2013. And when he passed away, like you said, that trauma bond there, I had never had a conversation with him as an adult about all of the things that I had gone through as a child. And when he passed away, I was so angry about that. It's still upsetting, like, to think that I never had that conversation with him. But I try to think about, like, I know my dad loved me. He loved all of my brothers and sisters. I have 3 younger, and then I say 3 older. 2 are my actual half siblings. 1, she is not blood related, but she's still my sister. But him passing away, I never got to really, like, talk about those things with him to heal those. I still have thoughts and triggers and things that are from my childhood that are hard for me to get over because I don't have answers. So there's no closure there. And learning to work through those feelings as an adult is hard. Being an adult is hard. Trauma is hard.
It's very confusing. And
Yes.
knowing that you're not alone, because I don't have a therapist, but in a way I feel like when we get together, like we're each other's therapists.
Yes.
Because, growing up as a child, going through abuse, like, you feel very, very, I don't want to cry too much, but
I love you. It's okay.
but you feel very alone. And then you see all your friends grow up with very normal childhoods, because I was a very social butterfly who would make friends with any and everyone, because my house wasn't the safe house.
Right.
So it's nice knowing that you're not alone. You can work through it, and it doesn't make you weak, because I think that, like, my parents' generation and maybe yours, they're deemed as weak if they've been through any type of abuse, and they don't want to admit that it can affect them more than they would like to admit. But, there's a sense of power of healing in it. I mean, we've been through some of the most awful things. And I get it. There's kids and other adults have been out there through even worse than what I've been through. But does that mean that we deserve what we've went through? Absolutely not.
Right.
No.
Right. Going back to you saying it can be confusing, I don't think that we have to completely understand why someone did what they did. That's something I try to remind myself. I constantly try to make sense of things, and sometimes shit just doesn't make sense.
Right.
And you just have to leave it at that. It doesn't make sense. But going back to recognize those feelings, feel them for what they are, and then release them and move on to a new feeling. I think one of the reasons why I gravitated so much towards you was you sharing with me that you had childhood trauma. And I was like, me too. We kind of joked about it. You're like, my parents were fucked up. So were mine.
We have so many clients that will sit in the chair, and I'll make a joke about being abused or whatnot, and they're like, I love the dark humor. And I'm like, you have to make it funny. You have to make it funny somehow.
Right.
But we'll laugh, we'll cry, but we'll all get through it at the end of the day.
Yes, I love that. We're all here together as a family. I feel like, too, girls sometimes come in wanting to feel super sexy, leave super sexy, which we're going to achieve those goals.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that has been brought up is I was not expecting to be able to open up so much to you. That's one thing when I first met Danielle and she had her first shoot. She goes, "Oh my God, I shared so much with you. I was not expecting that."
Yes.
So
well, it's because, like, it's like you find your soul tribe, I swear.
Mhm.
And you can kind of gauge, like, what they've been through. And it's like, oh, you had a fucked up life. Me too, girl.
yeah, I feel like everyone has something. I don't care who you are. There is
some
one memory where you have some sort of trauma from it, whether it's losing a pet or it's abuse. Someone will have something that they bring to the trauma table. So
yeah, it's definitely more common than what you would think. I get told all the time, I'll open up maybe a little bit about my childhood and they're like, wow, I would have never guessed. I'm like, you wouldn't guess that about a lot of people.
A lot of my friends that I grew up with and graduated with knew my dad. And my dad on the outside looking in was like, oh my gosh, it's a single father raising 4 kids and they're involved in all of these sports and your dad was so fun. They say all these positive things and I love all of that. But none of them knew the extent of trauma at home when he wasn't super dad in public. He was yelling and screaming at you with spit flying on your face. He was punching things. He was threatening you physically. My brothers and sisters, we grew up without my mom being present. I didn't reconnect with her until I was 23. So being the oldest in the household, my dad used to call me Mama Des, and I would have to cook and clean. My grandma would live on and off with us, his mom, and she would take over a lot of those responsibilities. But when she wasn't there, it was me. And I remember telling my dad, don't ever call me Mama Des. Like, I'm not a mom. I'm a teenager. Those are my siblings. Like, stop. But if they were to slack in grades, I would get in trouble for that. I remember I went to bed one night. They stayed up late and, like, destroyed the house and dishes were in the sink. I remember him waking me up at, like, 6:30 in the morning, yelling and screaming at me because the house was destroyed and I needed to put it back together.
And no child should have to bear that on their shoulders. That is not any of your weight to carry.
Right. But learning all of that at an early age, now I have to always fix things or be right about things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I messed up. Like, I feel like there's some sort of like perfection with things that I have to have. And that's a really hard struggle. That's affected me in my marriage. Those are things that I've had to like talk to Derek about. This is why I have done this or this because of those feelings. And he has his own personal traumas from growing up too. And being 2 people with your own traumas and being married, it can be a struggle sometimes working through those things with your partner. So I feel like it's important too to share those things with someone outside of your marriage too, so that you can kind of have a comfort with someone who is not your spouse. It's just a different type of connection, I feel like. And sometimes that helps you too as an individual. It can help you learn how to do things with your spouse, how to overcome certain things that you and your spouse have been arguing about or whatever. So I feel like when they come into the studio here and get to know us, or we start private messaging or texting each other, I give everyone my phone number so we can start texting outside of you as a mom or you as a wife, that you can come in. We establish not just a client relationship, but a friendship. Yes. And so I know you've made friends with several women. Jazzy has, I have, and it's nice knowing that we have someone in our back corner who is supporting us and cheering us on.
Absolutely. And not all spouses have been through trauma and can even understand maybe some of the things that we've been through. And so having someone on the outside who has been through, letting you know you're not alone is great.
Right. I can't even imagine being with someone who hasn't like had those traumas, because me and Derek like we'll make jokes about it or we'll bring different things up, and I just can't even imagine like not being with someone who's as fucked up as you are.
Well, that's great because Kenneth's mom, he was raised the way I wanted to be raised, so it can make us definitely. But he's real sweet about, he hates what I've been through, but
Right.
he had the mother in childhood that I wish I would have had, but now I'm like, she's my mom now. I'm the favorite sibling. Forget you, Kenneth and Ben. She loves me now.
Oh, I love that. That's good to have that relationship.
Crazy we're talking about healing because last night when I was laying down, I was thinking about how I wanted to like try to talk about how we have in-depth conversations about trauma, and I tell Kenneth this all the time, like it really is healing knowing you're not alone and different things that you can kind of gauge, and they won't even tell us exact things that they've went through, maybe just kind of hint towards what they've been through, and that still is healing enough on us,
right?
But
that's something I definitely want to say. I'm not saying you have to tell us everything in detail or tell us anything at all. You don't even have to tell us anything at all. You can just establish, this is what I'm comfortable with, this is what I'm not comfortable with. Because not everyone is ready to talk about those things or want to talk about those things. And that is 100% okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about cats and dogs.
We talk about animals a lot.
Yeah, we talk about animals. That's a great conversation. We'll talk about
your feral cat.
Yeah, my feral freaking crazy ass cat. But he's just like me. That's why he's my favorite. But
you're a little asshole like I am.
Yeah. I'm like, you've been through trauma. It's okay. I get it, dude. But, okay.
I feel like the clients definitely have control of what is happening in the studio, which is important. Like, this is your shoot, your day.
It's about
your world. We're just living in it. Yeah.
We'll talk about what you want to. We have clients that sometimes are quiet, and that's fine. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they have a lot on their mind and they don't want to talk. We're very good about we're very, very good about gauging on what you want to talk about. I'll ask, do you have babies? Do you have fur babies? Do you have a partner? Very considerate when we talk about things, engaging who you are as a person, what you want to talk about, what you don't want to talk about.
I feel like all of that is super important when going into something like this.
Yes, ma'am.
I like that we make sure that no one feels isolated or alone. I feel like that's something too. If you walked into a setting like this and you felt like awkward, odd man out, I don't fit in.
Right.
I feel like all of us at some point in our lives have felt like that person, and that sucks.
And not here. You come in here, baby, and we're like, hello, bad bitch, let's get to it. Let's get you ready, get some glam, get you naked.
That's right. That's right. Everyone has a seat at our table. You are never the odd man out.
And when you're getting your makeup done, even because I know bare face, you might feel uncomfortable, and I'm telling you, wow, I love your cheekbones, I love your nose, I love your eye shape, I love your color of your eyes. I'm boosting up all of your natural features that are just as gorgeous with or without makeup.
Right. I love that. That's definitely like the start of the hype is them sitting down in the chair and you telling them how beautiful their skin is or their features are before we even go back and start to undress. Like as soon as you walk in the door, we're like, yes, ma'am.
Yep.
I love that. Woo! This has been another great episode of Behind Closed Doors Self-Love Unfiltered. I really enjoyed having you come and us dive into all of the trauma talk and about how the studio is a safe space. If you would like to follow Amanda on her Instagram, it's Babes and Beauty. Can you spell that out because it's spelled differently?
So it's Babes X Beauty _ and Amanda Coleman's my name on there. Facebook, it's Babes and Beauty as well. And yeah, if you just want to reach out and talk about any and everything, talk about makeup look that you might want to do beforehand. But thank you for having me. I always love being on.
You can follow all of my socials, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Go to my website, www.studio323ok.com. And I have Aram coming. She is a client and new friend of mine. She's going to be sitting on the couch and we're going to dive in and talk about some new things. And I look forward to having you join us on the next episode.